Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 9th edition of the Africa Fintech Summit in beautiful Washington, DC. I would also like to welcome our attendees with us online. That's the beauty of today's events, is that you can be anywhere in the world and still be part of the best events. So welcome to everybody joining us online. What a year it's been, right, since last year. It's lovely to see many familiar faces. I feel that when we met last year in April, there was sort of a wind of enthusiasm. We were coming out of COVID, happy to all be back together in person. And yet, we're facing a global economic crisis. There's a dramatic slowdown in the venture capital landscape. However, we're here to talk about Africa today. And African tech startups have attracted last year 6.5 billion in funding, and a third of which was in fintech. It's the highest ever recorded. We are the only continent with a positive investment growth, and that is a testament to the opportunities and the potential of Africa's technology sector. I'm Eloine, the founder and CEO of African Media Agency and AMA Academy, and it's my pleasure to host you today. So we have a beautiful event. Thank you. We're beautiful event, as always, very busy. We'll be talking today about the role of fintech in accelerating climate goals, the use of blockchain in Africa, the role of DFIs in accelerating financial inclusion. We'll also have a visualization exercise. We'll talk about payments, neobanking, and later on we'll have a pitch and an afternoon pitch competition. The highlight of the day, and this is very exciting, is the announcement of the partnership between Prosper Africa and the Africa Fintech Summit. That comes on the heels of the US-Africa Leadership Forum that was hosted in December. So we look forward to actionable initiatives at the end of the day, and I want to thank each and every one of you for making this event possible and for supporting us. A little housekeeping before we get started. This is the main stage, and there are also events taking place in the breakout rooms. I will direct you, but please make sure that you refer back to the agenda on the app to make sure that you participate in the sessions that you are interested in. The hashtag is AFTSDC23. Feel free to comment, to post on social. It's always great to take the conversation online. And finally, we're ready to welcome one of the most influential people of African descent, nominated for the year of 2018 under Business and Entrepreneurship. He's the founder and the MD of Ibex Frontier and the co-founder of Africa Fintech Summit. He also helped architect the first fintech training for over 200 journalists last year across the continent. And I want to personally thank him for this contribution. Please welcome my friend and my brother, Zekarias Amsalu.
Thank you so much, Eloine, and very good morning for everyone. We're happy to have Assistant Secretary Ramin Toloui with us, and welcome also to Dr. Monde Mwangwa, the Assistant Administrator of the Bureau of Africa, USAID, Deputy Assistant Secretary Joy Basu, Special Representative Delaware Seed, and Thomas Debas, Chief Partnership Officer and Managing Director of the Office of Global Partnership at the U.S. Department. And honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, here in DC, and also those of you joining us across several time zones via our C-event, virtual event, a very warm welcome to our 9th Africa Fintech Summit. So good to see many familiar faces, and welcome to those of you who are joining her here for the first time. We have so much to explore throughout the day. As Eloine mentioned, we have 11 panels. We have 2 keynotes, a pitch competition, and the launch of the Prosper Africa's Tech for Trade Alliance. And we have 3 workshops focused around PR for fundraise for startups during economic slowdown, the role of neobanking in the future of commerce in Africa, and the third one, supporting digital public goods for sovereign digital infrastructure. So much to look out. I encourage you to download the event app so that you can select the panel of your choice when we have concrete sessions. You know which rooms, you know which panels you want to go, either here in the main plenary session or breakout room. So please download our app so that you can have the full update of the day. And I would like to extend our special thanks to our sponsors. Without their financial support, this event wouldn't have taken place. And recognizing the financial difficulties the tech industry has gone through lately, we really don't want to take their financial support for granted. So thank you so much. And finally, as I always say, lots of synergetic partnership take place during networking, coffee break, lunch break, and our happy hour later on as well. So please enjoy the day, network, interact, and leave your mark in the Africa FinTech space. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to announce our keynote speaker, who is the Assistant Secretary of the Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs at the US Department of State. He heads the department efforts on expanding opportunities for American businesses to deepen cooperation with other countries. Before joining the Department of State, he was a professor of international finance at Stanford University. His research and teaching focused on global markets and international economic cooperation. He served for 3 years as the Assistant Secretary for International Finance at the US Treasury Department and worked on financial stabilization programs across the globe, including Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, the Dominican Republic, Turkey, and the Balkans. It is my pleasure to welcome Ramin Toloui.
Well, good morning to everyone here in Washington, and hello to everyone who's watching this around the world, whether it's at online, American embassies, other institutions. It's wonderful that we're able to gather here in person, and also wonderful that, that our friends and colleagues around the world can also join us. Thank you to Zekarias and his team for organizing this very important event. And also I'd like to thank State's Office of Global Partnerships, including Thomas DeBas, who's here today, for all of his work that made this possible. President Biden underlined during the US-Africa Leaders Summit that we believe that the African continent has the power to shape the global economy. And we're committed to partnering with African countries to make that future a reality. A thriving Africa benefits all of us. As the people in this room know, and those who are listening around the world, the digital economy is a critical part of that. And in particular, the meteoric growth of the fintech sector offers substantial opportunities, accounting for more than half of all of the startups on the continent. Behind these overall impressive headline figures are impressive individuals. One of them, who's here in attendance today, Benjamin Fernandez, is the founder and CEO of payment company Nala. He was the first Tanzanian and the youngest African to graduate from Stanford Business School in 2017. In fact, before this event, we were just remarking, Stanford Business School is my favorite place to eat lunch on the Stanford campus, so we probably passed one another then. But he went on to do extraordinary things after leaving Stanford, returning to Tanzania, and when he was there, spent hours interviewing local Tanzanians about their frustrations with mobile money. Armed with that input, he built a mobile money transfer system that works cheaply and efficiently, even offline, expanding access to financial tools to help more Tanzanians. That company, Nala, raised $10 million backed by leading US investors such as Y Combinator. It became one of the first African tech companies to sign contracts with Apple Pay and Google Pay. And now Nala is expanding its international footprint. A partnership with M-Pesa will soon extend the platform to the African diaspora across 19 Eurozone countries, the UK and the US, allowing people to quickly send money to users in Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and Ghana. Nala is just one example of how US investment coupled with African innovation and creativity can support jobs and improve lives in African communities and around the world. And you're going to hear more examples of that today. So the question from the US perspective is, how can we partner with African countries to create an enabling environment for open, secure, reliable, and trusted digital infrastructure, the kind of environment that enables innovation like Benjamin's? And how can we facilitate the US investment that can catalyze African innovation, that brings benefits both to Africans and to Americans? And our approach is to do so by bringing together the resources of the US government to work in tandem with African countries on key digital issues, expanding access, building up infrastructure, increasing digital literacy, and convening the right stakeholders to jumpstart investment. Now, to this end, the administration announced a major new initiative, the Digital Transformation with Africa initiative, during last December's US-Africa Leaders Summit. Coordinated across 18 US departments and agencies, DTA activities range from USAID-led digital literacy programs for marginalized communities to multi-million-dollar financing commitments from the US International Development Finance Corporation. And let me give a few examples of the types of activities in capacity building, in catalyzing private investment, in convening key stakeholders that are going to be supported and already are being supported by the US government's work. On the issue of capacity building, the State Department has a program called the Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnership. And it supports capacity building and technical assistance programs designed to promote an open, interoperable, reliable, and secure digital ecosystem. We collaborate with African regulators, policymakers, and industry leaders on key issues, including 5G security and Open RAN networks. Our engagement continues this spring at a State Department-hosted regional conference in South Africa with African leaders to discuss digital connectivity and the latest Open RAN developments. We're also working with partners to exchange information on regulatory best practices as Africa accelerates digitalization. For example, in Accra, Ghana, we support the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, a project that will unlock enormous economic opportunities across the continent. But to catalyze those opportunities, it also requires that new digital systems facilitate trade across borders. To that end, our Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnership, through our DCCP, we're supporting a digital trade advisor to assist with the design and implementation of digital policies, among other embedded experts hosted by governments supporting the free trade across the continent. Our interagency partners have also sponsored reverse trade missions to promote partnerships between the US and Africa in the digital sector. For example, last month, the US Trade and Development Agency welcomed a delegation of digital infrastructure leaders from several countries in Southern Africa. The delegation met with US government officials and industry leaders in Washington, D.C. and in Silicon Valley to explore partnerships to expand internet access and accelerate digital transformation in support of bridging the digital divide. Now, while we pool our resources as US government agencies to do what we can to support Africa's digitalization, we know that we can't do that alone. We need to leverage our power, the US government's power, as a convener to facilitate public-private partnerships and support private sector engagement, and in addition, use our instruments to try to catalyze private sector investment. Just at the African Leaders Summit in December at the State Department, we hosted an innovators gathering, which brought together African entrepreneurs. We had a pitch competition, and again, intended to facilitate and catalyze these important connections. In terms of catalyzing investments, in Liberia, a tech company, C Squared, is establishing a 350-kilometer national fiber network that will connect 1 million Liberians to the internet. This public-private partnership was facilitated through Digital Invest, a blended finance program led by USAID and the State Department that seeks to prime the investment pump and mobilize private capital for digital connectivity infrastructure. The US government can also forge business connections through support for events like this summit and others. When diaspora-owned cyber security firm Sebastian sought funding to improve cybersecurity across West Africa, our Prosper Africa initiative stepped in to introduce the small business to potential investors. As a result, at the US-Africa Leaders Summit, President Biden announced 10 new Sebastian cybersecurity commitments in Africa, which also use Cisco equipment, laying the security foundation for more tech-enabled growth in the region. And you're going to hear more about Prosper Africa later this morning when we launch the Prosper Africa Tech for Trade Alliance, a partnership with major US companies to accelerate e-commerce and digital trade. Working with the private sector can also foster financial inclusion. MasterCard committed to increase access to its Community Pass platform to a total of 15 million farmers in Africa by 2027. With support from the US International Development Finance Corporation, the platform helps address some of the challenges that arise in rural communities, such as unreliable connectivity or lack of consistent identification or credentials. Through this platform, farmers can connect directly with buyers and access credit, empowering them to negotiate the best price for their produce. Through all of these activities, we seek to promote access to digital skills and literacy, particularly for women, youth, and marginalized populations. The bureau that I lead at the State Department, the Bureau for Economic and Business Affairs, in particular has a program to support women's economic empowerment through something we call our Power Initiative, which is providing opportunities for women's economic rise. And in that program, for example, the Power Program helped the US Consulate in Lagos work with an organization called Lagos Mums, a Lagos-based women's association, and Google to organize a virtual workshop entitled Technology as an Enabler of Growth. And this organization helps to help female entrepreneurs use technology to optimize and scale their companies for sustainable growth, using technology in the first instance to connect these women and also connecting them to not only one another, but opportunities to grow their business. And that's just one example of the kind of engagement that the Power Initiative promotes. So in conclusion, I want to echo and underscore the importance of and our call for the private sector and the philanthropic community to work alongside us to achieve these goals through investments in areas that increase access to mobile banking and financing and provide the tools and training to promote digital literacy, especially for women and youth. And I hope that this conference provides an important opportunity to make those connections and advance our collective goal of a more connected and prosperous digital future for Africa. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, and I wish you the best in all of the meetings and discussions you'll be having today.